Minecraft Invasion of the Overworld Chapter 2 The Server. Leaning back in his comfy office chair, Game Night 909 laughed at the screen. "You're a bunch of idiots," he said to no one, smiling. The room echoed his laughter back to him, cold and empty. He was playing alone, as usual. Noises could be heard from upstairs. His younger sister was watching some foolish kids show, the sounds of cartoon creatures singing an annoying childish song lightly filling the air. Game Night shook his head. His sister could be such a pain sometimes. "Quiet down up there," he yelled, the volume of her cartoon only getting louder in response. Game Night growled a curse under his breath and focused back on his computer game. Next to the screen, he saw the birthday card she'd made for him last week. It was a childishly hand-drawn picture of him holding his sister's hand as they walked across pink rolling fields, gigantic purple and blue flowers dotting the landscape. She'd spent hours on it, working in complete secrecy up in her room. The smile on her face when she'd given it to him had been incredible, lighting up the room. He smiled. She wasn't a bad sister, just annoying, sometimes. The volume of the TV upstairs went down a bit, likely due to a closed door. "Thanks," he yelled, without taking his eyes off the computer, off Minecraft. He loved this game, loved pranking people, trolling as it was called in Minecraft, using his expertise to mess with them in multiplayer, killing them and taking their stuff. Today was a great troll, ending the biggest team PvP game ever to be played on Minecraft with a draw. No winners except him. Laughing again, Game Night logged back into his game and went to his server list. He'd heard of a new server, something really big. Pulling out the paper he'd written the IP address on, he joined the server. It was a survival game, his favourite. With all those hacks and mods and software, he'd rule his server in no time at all. Hopefully their security wouldn't be very good and he could get into creative mode quickly. As the game started, the opening scene looked different, with strange writing on the screen that he didn't recognise, letters and words that were completely intelligible. "This is different," Game Night said to himself as he tried to decipher the image. Just as patterns started to surface from the writing, the screen went blank, and his character suddenly spawned into the game. The area where he appeared was interesting. No, it was very interesting, with gigantic cliffs nearby and a long waterfall falling from its heights. Overhanging surfaces hung high up in the sky next to the waterfall, at least 40 blocks into the air. The water was falling down the complete height, but continued into a deep cavern at the foot of the cliff. Bright light from within the chamber told him there was lava somewhere down there, likely the meeting of water and lava forming cobblestone. Climbing to the top of a nearby hill, Game Night could see another interesting stone outcropping nearby, with more overhanging surfaces sticking out into the air. A village, beyond that, just barely visible in the distance. This rocky structure had long columns hanging underneath the overhang, the stony spikes looking like the giant fangs of some blocky leviathan. Yes, this server was definitely interesting. The sun was starting to set, something that could be a problem on a server if you weren't prepared. But of course, Game Night was always prepared. Hitting Ctrl Z, he opened his favourite cheat. An inventory popped up on his screen, giving him access to everything. Of course, he took diamond armor and a diamond sword, but he also took a bow, a stack of arrows, and an anvil. Placing the anvil on the ground, he enchanted his bow with Punch 2, Power 3, and Infinity. Not as good as his last bow, but still respectable, with the Punch 2 acting like knockback for his sword, and of course the Infinity giving him infinite arrows. After grabbing some golden apples to eat later, he closed his inventory and went hunting. Seeing some pigs on the grassy plain below, he fired a few arrows at them to get the range, then started drilling them from the hill, firing 6 quick shots at the annoying pink animals, hitting and killing 4 and barely missing 1. He decided that he would let this lone pig live out of the kindness of his heart, but then changed his mind and fired his 7th arrow, the iron barbed projectile quickly transforming the animal into a pile of bacon. Running down the grassy hill, Game Night collected his prize, pork. As he picked up the last pile, he saw a couple of players moving towards him, walking under the canopy of a small cluster of trees, mostly oak and birch. They were obviously noobs, having only leather armor and stone swords, and staying much too close to the shadows. Quickly scanning the area and looking around for threats, Game Night moved behind a group of birch trees, the low-hanging branches hiding him behind their leafy arms, while he waited as the players neared. A zombie suddenly jumped out of the shadows and surprised them, arms outstretched. The 2 players struck out at the creature with their pathetic stone swords. They slashed at the green beast, its moaning filling the air, hacking furiously rather than one of them attacking while the other defended. Idiots. The zombie clawed and pounded on their thin leather armor, doing damage to sections of their protective cloaks as they had battled. Rather than aiming for the head, the 2 noobs continued to hack at the outstretched arms, doing damage but not very much, letting the creature respond in kind until they eventually killed the beast, but taking some damage themselves in the exchange. What a joke, taking damage from just one zombie. Game Night thought, these 2 don't deserve to play Minecraft. Pulling out his shimmering enchanted bow, he loosed an arrow at the nearest of the 2, then quickly fired another at his companion. Once he had the range, he continued to fire at the 2 players, piercing them with multiple arrows and killing them without a problem. Their armor offered little protection after the zombie battle. How pathetic. Their belongings fell to the ground. Stone tools, bows, arrows, and of course their puny stone swords. The items floating just off the ground. Normally he would collect the spoils of war, but these 2 had nothing of value, so he ignored them and moved on. Turning, he headed towards the village he'd seen in the distance. Pausing to drink a potion of swiftness, Game Knight sprinted the distance, wanting to get there before dawn. As he ran across the blocky terrain, he could see the lights of the village drawing nearer, the darkness making it difficult to see his surroundings. Oh no, hole in the ground. Stopping quickly, Game Knight just barely avoided falling into a cavern where he would have likely taken damage. Slowing his pace, he proceeded more carefully, avoiding the many caverns and crevices in this world. What an interesting map! It was like nothing he'd ever seen before. The village appeared as he crested the next hill. It was your standard village with crops at the centre near the well, small structures surrounding the fields, and larger buildings on the periphery. Dispersed amidst the wooden homes were the stone buildings that looked castle-like, with a two-story tower rising above the rest of the structures, and of course there were the villagers, maybe 20 of them. Most of them were hiding in the homes because it was dark, and nighttime was monster time. There were monsters all through the village, spiders, skeletons, zombies, and the occasional enderman. The zombies were milling in front of the many homes with their putrid green arms extended out in front of them, as always their tattered clothes barely clinging to their decaying bodies. They banged on the wooden doors, hoping to break down and gain access to devour those within, or to catch the foolish villager that might be wandering outdoors. The spiders also prowled about the village, their bulbous bodies swaying side to side as their 8 hairy legs scurried across the ground, their multiple red eyes looking in all different directions. The skeletons stood off at a distance, each one armed with a bow and arrow, the moonlight shining bright off their bony physiques. But the worst of all were the endermen. These tall, dark, lanky creatures were the stuff of nightmares, with the ability to teleport from place to place. They were a terrible foe to face in battle, very difficult to kill. With their long arms, they had quite a punch, and they could do damage to even the most stout of armors. The most terrifying aspect about them, though, was their glaring eyes, wide and always glowing with hate, and their maniacal laugh, bringing terror to the unfortunate soul who was close enough to hear it. Right now, these black monsters were just standing on the outskirts of the village, as it closed off the perimeter and making escape impossible. Game Knight sprinted to one building and broke a block at head level, giving a skeleton an easy shot into the structure. The bony white monster took advantage of the opening and fired into the building, eventually killing the female villager inside. Game Knight smiled. Moving to another building, he sprinted past a group of zombies and broke the door with his diamond pick. The zombies leapt at the chance and charged into the home, attacking the occupants within. They clawed at the blocky villagers, landing blow after blow on the helpless NPCs until their victims changed, becoming terrible demons themselves. Villager zombies. Their long noses were now a greenish-brown, their arms finally released and extended straight out in front of them. Their new moaning voices added to the cacophony of the battle. Game Knight laughed. This was fun, feeding the NPCs to the mobs, while at the same time running too fast for the monsters to catch him. But sadly, the fun was going to end. Game Knight could see the sun starting to show its bright square face as it peeked over the horizon in the east, the ground brightening until the zombies and skeletons burst into flame, the endermen and creepers fading back into the hills. It was now time to search the village and steal anything of value. Moving from building to building, he searched for chests and treasures, pushing past the dim-witted villagers that seemed everywhere, their arms permanently folded across their chests. He found some iron in the blacksmith's shop, as well as a loaf of bread, but little else. This village sucks, he thought to himself. Moving next to the castle-like structure at the centre of the village, Game Knight found an empty chest and left his enchanted bow in case he needed it again later. Then he left the house and went back to the spawn location, the waterfall and cliff. Suddenly feeling thirsty in real life, he reached across his basement desk and grabbed the can of soda he'd been nursing through the last game. Bringing it to his mouth, he drained the last bit of sugary goodness, leaning way back to empty the can. Looking around the basement, he surveyed his surroundings. Around him were his father's inventions, nearly all being abject failures. An automatic ketchup bottle opener that tended to break off the top of the bottle, a 3D printer that printed using melted licorice, an iPad holder that mounted to your glasses so that you could walk and watch videos at the same time, failure after failure. Virtually all of these items were ridiculous and did something other than what they were intended to do. However, his latest creation, the 3D digitizer array, a device that could take a 3D image of a real thing and pull it into whatever computer software you had running at the time, seemed to actually hold some promise. A sound came from upstairs, likely his dad coming home. He was playing on his father's computer, the one hooked up to the digitizer, and he knew it wasn't supposed to be on it. It had an awesome video accelerator on it, lots of RAM and multiple CPUs, making Minecraft look really cool and run really fast, but he had to get off it before he got caught. As he cleaned up the desk, Game Knight tossed the empty soda can towards the trash, but completely missed. He didn't care, someone else would pick it up. The can bounced off the rim of the trash can with a ringing thud, ricocheted off the wall, and then hit a screwdriver that was hanging off the edge of his father's workbench. Dipping as if in slow motion, the screwdriver slowly leaned over the edge of the table and toppled to the floor, landing on the control electronics to his father's digitizer. A bright yellow spark jumped out of the rat's nest of wires and electrical components, the smell of burned insulation filling the air. More sparks jumped up into the air, making the basement lights dim just a little as the digitizer powered up. It all seemed to happen in slow motion. the can flying through the air and the screwdriver falling onto the electronics. The entire sequence played through his mind like a bad YouTube video. I hope I didn't break anything, Game Knight thought to himself, but just as he was about to get up and check the electronics, a low hum started to fill the air. Sounding like an approaching swarm of angry bees, the ray gun-looking digitizer started to glow yellow. Before Game Knight could get up and turn it off, a sparkling white beam of light burst from it and struck him in the chest. Tingling sensations swept across his body, making him feel burningly hot and chillingly cold at the same time. Then things started to spin around as if the rest of the room was caught in a tornado, and Game Knight stood stationary in its eye. Bright white light enveloped him as the room spun, the radiance searing his eyes and making his skin tingle. At first it felt like the blinding light was filling every aspect of his mind with its blazing fury, but then it started to pull at him, drawing him into its source like a drain pulling water into its shadowy pipes. Game Knight felt as if he was being wrenched from his body and drawn somewhere through the light, his very being pulled from the physical world somehow. And then things went dark, with Game Knight 999 slowly fading into unconsciousness. But just as the conscious world was leaving him, he swore that he could hear animals, chickens, cows, and pigs. Oh my.